Hello again everyone. Earlier today I made my first video for you for the week and I used one of the kits. And the kit I used was this one, the Notes of Kindness kit. And I was showing you how you didn't have to do the exact same cards that were in the kit. And let me find it, here we are. This is the one I made for you. And we took this backing and we took an element from here and we took the thank you from this card. Some of the little embellishments and layers we took from this card and one from this card, and we made a totally different card. And I said to you that I was going to make a second card because I had an idea in my head of what I was going to make. So now I'm going to make the second card. I saw on one of the demonstrator website, I think it was, a lady from Australia had made a card with like a little window in it, and she'd used one of the celebration stamps. It was the Lovely Lattice, and that was Lou Kitzelman in Australia. Apologies if I didn't say your name right, Lou. And her site is called With a Bow on Top. So although it's not the same card or the same sizings, because I'm using a note card and she used an ordinary size card, I think, I did take my inspiration from you, Lou, so thank you. I'm going to leave that just there so that you can see her name. And I'm putting this here just to show you what I used and what size piece of white card we needed. And what I did was I took out one of the note cards from the kit, and it was this one, and I cut it in half across the score line. There's nothing wrong with cutting them up. You know, make more cards. You could use the other piece as a backing. You could cut it into strips and use it like these kind of layers. You can do what you like. It's your kit. You make what you want to. So I cut that in half, and then I cut myself a piece of white card that was 9 inches by 3 inches, and I scored it at 4.5. And I made it that side because it was 1/2 inch smaller all the way around than this note card piece that we're going to be using. So here was my piece, and then I got out my rectangular framelets, my stitched rectangle framelets, and the piece I used wasn't the smallest in the set at the right hand side, it was the next one up. You could fit the next one up as well and still have a nice size card, but I wanted to do mine so that my sentiment fitted right inside and didn't leave a lot of space, so that's why I chose this. Then what I did was I just popped this and eyeballed it into the middle like that, and I put it through my big shot, but I put it on an angle so that the big shot took a corner first, because sometimes if you put it in so that like a whole side hits the big shot, it sort of jumps a little bit. I think it must be a bit like a speed bump for it. Suddenly got a lump to go over. Whereas if you feed it in gradually, just by a corner, it makes it a much smoother transition. Okay, so the piece that came out of here, I'm going to stamp my sentiment on. If you didn't want to do that, you could close your card up, stamp your sentiment there, because you've got your rectangle all ready to line it up with. Stamp your sentiment, and then, you know, that works as well. But I want my sentiment to be raised, so that's why I used this, and I've saved the piece from the middle. Now, you know, when I'm doing stamping, I don't always get the stamping in the right place. And that's like many of us, but it doesn't matter. On this one, if you remember, I had it more to the top than the bottom, so I just cut round it and made it perfect. But what I'm going to do today is use the Stamparatus. And I find for some things, this makes my job so much easier, and I know it's going to stamp in the right place, just where I want it to. So all I've done is I've got a little piece of grid paper in here. Stampin' Up do now sell the correct size grid paper. You don't have to cut a piece yourself anymore. And I've also got the silicone mat. And I find that with these photopolymer pieces, if I put the silicone mat in, I get a nicer impression. And then all I've done is I've put my little piece that came out of the inside of the die. I've just put it on here. Nowhere in particular. I've put my magnets on the very corners. Oops. And then I've got the thanks from the stamp set. Where did I put the stamps? Here it is. Oh, I've got such a lot of pieces on my table today. So I've got this. Some of the others would fit as well. If you made your rectangle a little bit bigger, you would have more space around it than I'm going to have. You could use a different stamp set, anything you want. But I just want the thanks piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, it's got no ink on or anything. I'm just going to lay it on top. I'm just going to stand up so that I can see. So I've laid it on top, and I'm not going to put anything else on. I just want that thanks to be right in the middle. So I've measured the top and the bottom just by eyeballing, and I think, yeah, that's just where I want it. So then I'm just going to close the stamparatus lid, give it a press, and that stamp should come up. Ooh, we don't want the paper. That stamp should come up, no problem. I just haven't got the magnets on very much. But because I didn't have a lot of space, I didn't want to put them on too far. So I'm just going to make that straight again and just check that that's where I want it. Okay, I'm just going to move that magnet. I wonder if I can make it work just like that. I haven't given myself an awful lot of space, but that's actually better if I have the magnets horizontally. And it's still lined up. That's quite over to the left. I could move it down a little bit. So I'm just going to take it off, pop it back on. I would just like a little bit more space for the T at this left-hand side. Okay, press that down, lift it up gently. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Memento ink, and I'm just going to ink this up. Now, I like really to ink these up with the ink spots, because that way you don't get ink on the Perspex piece here. But if you're careful, you should be okay. If you do get some on, just wipe it off. Okay, and then I'm going to close it, and I'm just going to press. Not too hard, I'm just going over it a little bit. And then when I open it, if I think, oh, it's not quite black enough, I've got a little piece here that hasn't stamped. I wonder if that's something on the stamp itself. Oh yeah, it was. Just a little bit of fluff. So I'm going to stamp it up again, see if I can get rid of that little white spot. And the beauty of this is you can stamp it as many times as you want, because those magnets are going to hold your paper in place. It's not going to move. And every time you press that down, it's going to be in exactly the same place. Oh, that's much better, look. Those little white dots have gone. Okay, so I'm going to take that off. And let me see, where's my little chamois? Oh, here he is. I should take it out of its bag, and I'm just going to clean that stamp. There we are. And I'll pop that on one side because I don't need that again right now. Okay, so now we've got our card. We've found our card base. We've cut out our little window. I'll just put the lid on here. Okay, so we've got our card base, we've got our main card, and we've got our sentiment stamped. So I'm going to put adhesive on the back here. And you can use Tombow, you can use snail, anything that you need to. Okay, and then I'm just going to put this backing piece down. Oops, nearly dropped it then. And I'm just going to sort of roughly put it in the middle. You can just eyeball this, you don't need to really measure it. Okay, so there we are. So now our card will open like that. Now, our sentiment I'm going to put onto dimensionals. So let me find my dimensionals. I should turn this over, and I'm going to put 4 on. I'm just going to put 1 on each corner. And that way I know that it, you know, when you open and close the card, it isn't going to sort of be off center or sagging at one side and not the other. If you wanted to put one in the middle as well, you could. Take those off. Now I've got my card and I know my sentiment's going to be perfectly straight and lined up because I'm going to stick it back in the little hole from whence it came. Okay. There we go. So when I open and close it, I know it will open and close just perfectly. Next, I'm going to use some pieces out of this and I'm going to cut a couple of pieces. I thought about using this flower, which I think would look really nice, and I also thought about using one of these. So I'm going to cut one of these out and see what I like best. This is already half cut, so if I just cut round here, I think my husband's just come home, so you might find in a minute somebody shouts hello to you. Because he won't know that I'm making a video. So we're just going to put it onto here and I'm going to decide what I want, whether I want the flower or whether I'm going to put just the little leaves. I don't want it to be too fussy a card. I do like those leaves on there. So I think I'm going to put those on and I'm going to put dimensionals on the back and that way it will just stand off the card a little bit. So we'll just take the backings off. And I'm just going to attach it here. Just make sure that you don't have any dimensionals on this piece because otherwise when you try and open and close it, it will stay sticking onto the sentiment. And then do you remember for the last card I made a little bow and then I didn't want it? Well, waste not, want not. I'm going to use that little bow on here. So I'm just going to find a little glue dot. Let's find my paper piercer. Stick it on the back of here. And then I'm going to put it just at the bottom on there. And I quite like the way this twine, this copper twine frays at the ends. I think that looks quite pretty. If you didn't want it like that, just snip it and you can always put a little bit of the Tombow glue on and as that dries it will just keep it together. Okay, and then I need something around here. So I'm just going to get some of my pearls out and see what I've got in the box that matches the colours. Maybe I'll use the artisan pearls in the pink. I wonder if I've got any of those open. Oh, I have, but not in the right colour. Okay, so let's open this pack. I think my husband's tiptoeing around downstairs now. I think he knows I didn't shout hello, so I think he knows I'm doing something. Okay, and I'm just going to put 3 little not dimensionals, little pearls on. I'm just going to put 3 at the top. I'm going to look at that and make sure it's in a straight line. It's difficult when you're videoing because everything looks just slightly different. So there we are, those 3. And then once you open it, if you wanted to do your sentiment, your writing and your greeting down here, you can do it on here, or you can do it on the back. And probably what I would do is put another little sentiment on here, or I could stamp a flower, or I could use something else like the other piece of this. In fact, let's do that. Let's cut this piece out and stick it on the back. And then I'll do my writing on the back and it looks like the whole card is coordinated then. Oh, just cut this round here. And I'm going to put this on this time with the wet glue. Excuse my reach. And that way I can get all the little edges as well and they'll be sticking down. Oops. And I'm just going to put it over at this side. and then I won't put another sentiment on because I'll need this space to do all my writing. So there we are. That's a second card using the Notes of Kindness kit, one that isn't included in the kit, but it's such a pretty little idea. And thank you again to Lou for the idea of using like a card like this cut out to make a little window card. I really appreciated that idea. Thank you, Lou. So there we go. That's our second card for this week. And I'm hoping that next week when I use this set with my ladies at class, they'll come up with some different ideas. I'll try and remember to take photographs and show you them as well. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.